Hi guys, and welcome back to Caterpillar Cross Stitch. In this week's video, we're going to be talking all things backstitch. What is it, when to use it, and how to get started. If you're new around here, then hi, I'm Sally. I'm the owner and designer here at Caterpillar Cross Stitch, and I would love to have you join our community. So if you want exciting, fun, helpful video tutorials on a weekly basis, then please click the subscribe button down below. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this video, and I'll know to make more videos like this for you. And please do share the video with anyone that you know in your community so that we can spread stitching and help other people and grow the community further. Okay, so backstitch then. This is something that might fill some stitchers with absolute dread. Personally, here at Caterpillar Cross Stitch, we don't use backstitch in any of our cross stitch designs, but it's an amazing tool and skill to have in your arsenal. And I know loads of amazing cross stitch designers and companies do use backstitch in their patterns. So it's definitely worth knowing what it is, the basics, and how to use it in case you might choose to add it onto a design someday, or if you fancy picking up a kit that needs backstitch within the design. So here we go. Generally, you'll find backstitch is used with a darker colour thread. So for example, let's say it's a dark grey charcoal colour thread used for the backstitch. The pattern itself could be using paler or more colourful thread colours, and it needs a bit of definition around the edge. Sometimes with cross stitch, because essentially we're dealing in squares or pixels if you like, it's really hard to get a smooth curve, for example, around a rabbit's ear or around a flower or whatever it might be. So the cross stitch designer will include backstitch within the pattern to add definition, make a particular area of a pattern stand out, or perhaps for some kind of personalization, whether that's words, because it is quite tricky to stitch words with blocks of stitches. Also, perhaps if someone was stitching flowers, for example, you might want to do the leaves or perhaps a stem in a really thin defined stitch, which just isn't possible when you're doing full cross stitches. So you will see backstitch marked on cross stitch patterns for a variety of purposes and a variety of themes. Generally, you'll see a really thin, dark, black line marked across the pattern. Backstitch can be in every single hole, or it can split across. So it could split the middle of a square of a stitch, or it could miss out a few holes and jump across. I'll show you exactly what I mean here. So you can see here on this rabbit design. Now this is the rabbit sneak peek that was from our Hello Dear stitch along, which is now available as a full cross stitch kit if you were interested. We've got the poinsettia, which isn't quite finished, and this gorgeous rabbit. So all I've done here, now this backstitch wasn't included on the design itself because I didn't think it was necessary, but I thought it was quite a good pattern to show you this demonstration because we've got this dark navy blue thread against a really pale silvery grey block of stitches. So in the bottom right hand corner, you can see here that I have done as an example backstitch, which is following the edge of the stitched area. It still looks quite blocky and like you've got steps going down. You can use backstitch in this way, but you're still following the line of the squares. I think backstitch really comes into its own when you can make things much more curved and rounded. You can see on the bottom left-hand corner here, I've actually gone in a diagonal direction and have not followed the edge of the stitches. This gives the curve of this bottom ear a much nicer rounded shape. At the bottom of the top ear, I've actually missed out a couple of stitches and have pulled the thread over the top across 3 holes. You can do this maybe up to 4 holes, but I wouldn't take your piece of thread too far, any more than 4 holes, just in case that piece of thread gets loose and might look a little bit messy on the top of your project. So how to get started with your backstitching. So thread your needle just with one piece of thread like we're using here. Look at the pattern, it might say that you need 2 strands of thread, perhaps if it needs a bit more definition and really wants to stand out. But here we're just going to use 1 thread of DMC. Thread your needle as normal, just leaving a loose end. Push your needle up from the back to the front of your piece of fabric and look at your pattern to see where that backstitch needs to go. You're coming up from the back of the fabric to the front, almost ahead of yourself. So you're going further, coming up and then going back on yourself, hence the backstitch. You're coming down again and then going a bit further. So you're going to the next hole, coming up and coming back down again on yourself. This is the most straightforward backstitch there is. If you're doing backstitch in a row and you're going backwards on yourself, instead of pushing the needle through from the back to the front, back and forth all the time, you can actually just use one hand and push that needle through 2 holes at the same time. This is a lot quicker. Some designs might call for the same colour backstitch as the stitches themselves, just to add a really subtle line and definition to that block of stitches. And some patterns might call for backstitch completely by itself, so not necessarily outlining any block of stitches at all. What you could use this skill for is in any design, whether it needs backstitch or not, you could add personalization. So if you wanted to add a particular element or emblem, you might want to add the year onto it that it was stitched in. Some people in the bottom right hand corner of their cross stitch projects like to backstitch their initials, like a painting sort of marking their artwork with their signature. And if you get a design and you maybe feel that the colours aren't working well side by side, you can always use backstitch on just a really small section of a project, just to really make that particular section stand out. If you've ever fancied having a go at black work, then that's essentially backstitch over and over again. So it's a really great technique to learn how to use because it opens up so many doors within cross-stitch design itself, and you can try so many more different projects. Don't feel intimidated if a design that you absolutely love does have a ton of backstitch in it. It is time consuming. Some people find it a bit annoying, but others absolutely adore it. So give it a go and see if it works for you. Another lovely use for backstitch within cross stitch is if you're giving a particular project to someone, you can backstitch their name, a date, or any kind of phrase on there too. You can actually backstitch a word to be really tiny on a project, which means that even if you don't have a lot of fabric left around the edges of the stitched area, you can still add something really unique to that to make it a lovely gift for someone. So when you are backstitching around the outline, like I'm doing here with this rabbit design, and you've finished your piece of thread, simply push it through from the front to the back of your fabric and secure it under a few of the other stitches like you would normally when completing your cross stitches. You can see the difference quite easily here between the sections that do have the dark blue backstitch and the sections that don't have any backstitch at all. Some people much prefer the look of cross stitch when not using any backstitch at all. It's almost a softer, more modern design, I sometimes think. The backstitch can look a little bit old-fashioned, just depending, I think, on the design itself, but also on the colour thread that you choose to do the backstitching in. Sometimes you might not want it to be quite so drastically different to the stitches themselves, so using a dark blue or a black piece of thread to do your backstitch against a much paler section of stitches. I'm only using the dark blue here against the silver so that you can really see exactly what I'm doing. What you could do is use the exact same colour thread for your backstitch as the stitches themselves. It won't stand out as much, but it will give a really beautiful, neat, traditional and tidy look to your piece. Once you've practiced backstitch for a while, you will be much more confident using this in your cross-stitch projects going forward. You'll also probably find yourself looking at patterns thinking, I might amend that slightly or personalize it, putting your own little spin on things. So for example, here for this rabbit design, you might look at the pattern and think, the whiskers need to be in backstitch, which gives you so many more options because you could add in more whiskers and pull those across the grey of the fur. It's also a great technique to use if you're wanting to do eyes or hands or any definition on clothing or nature inspired designs. So I hope that you found this video helpful and has given you a great start to learning how to backstitch and use that in your next cross-stitch project. If you've got any questions at all about Backstitch, then please do leave them down below in the comments section and I will answer all of them. If you'd love to join the community and our VIP Stitch Club, then please click that link that's also in the description box and you'll receive 10% off your first order at Caterpillar Cross Stitch and a free ebook of 6 cross-stitch designs. So there's a whole host of themes that you can practice your backstitch on. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you next week. Bye.